I'm going to go into the confusing part of CIMT. Um, we had a group at the Healthy Life Summit that was just about 2/3 of them were YouTubers, and they knew their stuff cold. In fact, usually I just tell patients when you get a CIMT, skip over this part. I think it's a credit to Todd Eldridge that he includes it. If you look at one of his competitors, they don't even include that. And I understand, again, exactly why. Because I've often said it tends to create more confusion and more fear than, than it sheds light. Now, I made that comment to the YouTubers at the most recent Healthy Life Summit, and I said, you know what, you guys are much deeper in terms of understanding. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this. But even on mine, you see there's some scary things, and some scary things that are sometimes difficult to completely understand and interpret. But Todd, going back to his roots in terms of a doctorate in epidemiology and quality control, he's gone ahead and included these things. Now, why did he include them if they can create confusion? Well, you see right down here, this gives you a little bit of understanding why he did. There have been studies which indicate significance of these numbers, so he's putting them in case you want to see. So let's go back to these are my values from, this one is what? This one's the 2018, April 2018, at the Coyce event. Coyce is John Coyce is a great dental educator. Works with a lot of extremely smart dentists. Dentists from all over the world come over to get education at the Coyce Center. I did a presentation or series of presentations with my friend Doug Thompson. In March of 2019, about a year later, I had my CIMT done again as part of the Healthy Life Summit event, number 2 in Orlando. Now, these 3 were the 3 that I presented in my YouTube video, actually my most popular video, and it's about dropping 20 years of plaque. You may remember, just a brief update. So I got my first CIMT back at age 57. I had 73-year-old arterial age. Over the next 2 years, I finally bit the bullet and started taking statins. Whether you like it or not, it's just like supplements. You can't supplement your way out of a healthy lifestyle, and you can't medicate your way out of a healthy lifestyle. But supplements and medications have a place. I had been really not watching my blood sugar so much. I'd been doing plant-based and doing a lot of things right in terms of a healthy lifestyle, but I was beginning to get some insulin resistance and had not focused on that. It's also been shown in the science that going from not taking any statins at all to taking statins, you end up getting a significant drop in plaque. And that's what happened. Over the next couple of years, I dropped from an arterial age of 73 down to an age of 52. In April of 2018, at the Coyce Center in Seattle, I had another one done, and I was still at an arterial age of 53. By that time, I was 3 years older at age 60. Here's the bad news for me. An arterial age up to 58 by age 61, so a bump. Now, do I think all of that, do I think it's a complete 5 years? It could be. I haven't been getting monthly CIMTs as I was for a couple of years there. And so I don't really have enough to develop a true linear pattern. As I watch patients, I will tend to see some fluctuation of a couple to 3 years, but I think it's at least mixed. I think that there's at least a couple of years of me aging faster. I got my eye off the ball. I went from 155 pounds up to 160 pounds, 65 pounds. I was Working full-time in the Medicare Advantage environment, traveling every week, eating out too much, went from mostly salads to still staying low carb, but adding some entrees into those meals when I was out at restaurants. So had some challenges there. Now let's go back and let's look systematically at these numbers. So again, started in 57 at an age of 73. For the next couple of years, getting them every month or two, and showed a clear linear pattern of decreasing arterial age. In 2018, at 61, still at 53. Gained 10 pounds, went out to eat too much, and gained 5 pounds, 5 years arterial age. So at age 61, I was at 58. But we'll talk about that more later. Here's actually what I'm focusing on this time, this CV event risk. And as I mentioned, Todd Eldridge includes this on his reports from cardio risk scans. It's important data, it's helpful data, but it can get confusing. And so let's just spend a few minutes talking about that. The first one is early event risk, and you see some information down here about that. Early event risk refers to the patient's increased risk of having an event over the next 5.1 plus or minus 2.5 years. It doesn't suggest the patient's going to have a definite event. It's just, again, a probability number. And again, he lists the article where that came from in the Atherosclerosis Journal. With mine, you don't see a significant early event risk. Here's the next one. And the next two, the average CCA mean IMT, is basically the arterial age. The next one, or the third one, is the mean max region. You remember I said, I've done a couple of videos where I said, recurring throughout the science are these two numbers. Both of them have a significant impact on risk. The CCA mean IMT, as I said, is really the arterial age. The mean max is the average of the larger discrete plaques. So you remember the arterial age is where you go back to the common carotid artery. You take a centimeter of that common carotid artery, and you take 600 cuts out of that using a computer, average those 600 cuts up to see what is the arterial wall thickness. That's where I had I had the drop early on when I started the statins and lost those 5 pounds. And then I had the increase when I gained those 10 pounds. By the way, I've lost most of them back. I'm back down to about 154. So I'm hopeful that I'll get a better read next time. So that's the arterial age, or average CCA, common carotid artery, mean, meaning average, IMT, intima-media thickness. That's what that number is. And you can see that 0.73 and go back up here and see patient IMT is 0.72. So it's the same number, it's the arterial age. The average CCA mean max region, so average is another word for mean. CCA, common carotid artery, max region. So that's the mean max that you tend to see throughout the literature. Mine was 0.82. And here's where that comes from, taking the peak plaque numbers that you see here, averaging them up. So you're taking the peaks, you're averaging them, and that's giving you some information regarding my risk for heart attack and stroke. Now, that's actually an interesting number, because come down here and look at the details themselves. This is my number from the scan in April at the Coy Center in Seattle. Right CCA, common carotid, 0.8. 1.6 heterogeneous at the bulb, internal carotid 1.1. Left CCA, 0.9, bulb 1.0, and internal carotid 0.7. So you see I really did not get that much of a change in these discrete plaque numbers. The right CCA went from 0.8 to 0.8. The bulb went from 1.6 to 1.6. It remained heterogeneous. The right internal carotid, 1.1 to 1.1. The left common carotid went from 1.0 to 0.9. The bulb went from 1.0 to 1.1, and the internal carotid went from 0.8 to 0.7. So I look at that and I think, not really a significant change. As I've mentioned before, you have to question how much significance of change is in the arterial age. I think that's clearly a significant number. I just don't know how much of it's variation and how much of it's reality of my risk. I do think I did increase my risk a little bit with all of that eating. Now, to go back, I probably lost you at least a couple of times as I was going through this. And that takes me back to the comment that I started all this with. I usually tell patients, don't go there. You'll get, you can create a whole lot of emotion, get very worried, and let's just focus on the arterial age. So if you've made it this far, whether you've gotten confused or not, and whether I've lost you, and I'm not saying it's your fault. You know, this is difficult to present. Thank you anyway for your interest. Thanks, and if you hit that subscribe or like button, it makes a big difference. An even bigger difference happens when you share. You can share on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest. When you do that, it makes a big difference in terms of the algorithm. It sends this to other people, realizing that humans think this is interesting information and helpful. Thank you again. So about 3 or 4 days ago, Michelle went ahead and put up the news of our upcoming event in Louisville, November 8th and 9th. Within a couple of hours, someone had already bought a slot. We had 2 other people who started asking about reserving space. What is the event and why did we set it up? Well, when we had the Healthy Life Summit where we basically were a significant part of David Mainz's event, we got a lot of feedback. It was really good. People were very excited about it. But here's what they said. You need to do a PrevMed only event. Focus entirely on heart attack and stroke prevention. No business issues, no finance issues, no tax management issues. Those were all very good, very appropriate, and very helpful, but you need to start doing events that focus on cardiovascular inflammation, the major causes of cardiovascular inflammation like insulin resistance, lifestyle interventions, stroke prevention, things like that. So we're doing it. It will be in the Louisville, University of Louisville Event and Conference Center in Louisville, Kentucky. We will have CIMT and labs, 2 days of reviewing basically results on that, as well as the topics that I talked about. So it's like, instead of your typical evaluation with us where you get your labs and your CIMT and then spend half an hour to an hour with me based on whatever you've purchased in terms of time. This is going to be about 6 hours of my reviewing these results. That's the focus. It's not going to be a lot of new things and talk about supplements and stuff like that. It's going to be results of these kind of tests so you can begin to understand what you're seeing. Now, how do the labs work? Well, first of all, we'll be getting inflammation panels, OGTTs, lipids, cholesterol panels, metabolic panels, other basic panels for, again, a basic evaluation. How about so is it an evaluation? Yeah. You get a CIMT. The CIMT tech is already scheduled. She'll be there both days. It's included in the event price no matter which of the 2 major options you get. That includes reading and interpretation of the of your CIMT by an experienced CIMT qualified radiologist. So again, no matter which of the two options you take, the CIMT is included. Now, we have a lab option available as well. It is additional cost. Lab orders will be sent, if you take that, the lab orders will be sent to you about 6 weeks prior to the event. You'll go to a local lab corps, get your labs drawn, and that we will send you a lab order with a requisition on it that covers your costs. We will have negotiated those prices up front, so you don't have to worry about that. What does that mean and why is that an issue? I'll get to that in just a minute. So you'll have your lab results available during the event. As we go through those labs and what the different results mean, you'll have them in front of you so you can begin to see what's going on with your body. Do I review my results with the doc? Yes. If you get the full evaluation with the labs, we include one-on-one time with me and one-on-one time with Janice as well. When? Well, it could be before, during, and or after the event. The CIMT results will take about 2 to 7 days to become available. We'll cover interpretation of different types of results during the event. That's going to be one of the major discussion points. How can you interpret yours, even if you didn't purchase a full evaluation? So what are some of the concerns? Well, I think one of the first concerns is once you start talking about these kind of evaluations, they must cost too much. Well, here are the costs, and for a lot of people it is too much. 2 days with the CIMT is $1,450. You get the conference and CIMT, and again, the results from a qualified radiologist read on it. If you say, okay, you know what, I want to get labs as well, so we will pay for the labs out of that's $3,650. We'll pay for the labs out of the $3,650. We will also schedule one-on-one meetings with Janice on a health coaching perspective and with me. In addition, again, to the 2 full days of discussion of what CIMT and labs mean in your case. So yes, it's still a lot, but you know what? How does that compare? Well, let's go back and think about it. Again, I understand that's a heavy cost. It's still significantly less than what was associated with the 4,400 with the Healthy Life Summit. But again, you get a lot more of what I do and not so much of the broad dental perspectives, business perspectives. Again, as I've said many times, I'm continuing to try to make this more affordable. If you look at what we did in the past, it's better than 2 years ago. In the past, we were routinely charging $4,700. Labs were in addition, and additional labs can cost up to $3,000, $4,000 or $4,000. When Janice and I first did this as patients, we did end up paying $4,000 more for the labs themselves. We'll continue to improve. Our current base price for an evaluation, again, as you see on the website, is $990. That doesn't include labs, though. It includes what we call DIY or patient-driven labs. In that case, you're responsible for getting your labs. You're responsible for getting your CIMT. And why such a variation in lab costs when you go DIY? It has to do with this issue of DIY or patient-driven labs versus cash labs. The doctor didn't tell me the lab cost was $8,000. Now, I've not had any, I just got that picture out of the internet, and I haven't had anybody come back and say the labs were that much. But here's what happens. When labs negotiate with an insurance company up front, they are very, very reasonable because there's huge volume with the insurance company. Labs, once they realize that the insurance company is out of the way, and here's what typically will happen. The insurance company will agree to pay for the metabolic profile, maybe the fasting glucose, maybe the cholesterol panel. But then you get to the inflammation panel, which is the biggest item. If you get some of the other labs that your insurance company's not used to paying for, they'll say, nope, that's the patient pay. Now, most patients go into this process thinking, well, I'll just get my insurance company to pay what they will, and I'll pay for the rest. Red flare should be going off in your head, because that's what happens with out-of-network labs. Then the lab says, I have you in terms of financial negotiations, and they will typically charge 10 times or more what they would charge the insurance company. So what are cash labs? Labs will negotiate not as well. They'll negotiate with the doctor before the testing as well. They're typically not as inexpensive as they are with the insurance company, but they're a heck of a lot less expensive than they are with the patient. So and that's what we're doing with this event. That's what we did with the Healthy Life Summit event. We negotiate the prices with testing prior to the testing with the labs. We'll then accept cash from you, and that's the cost that we discussed. So again, we are actually starting to do cash labs again. We've done it with less than half dozen patients, because it's an accounting nightmare. Anyhow, I see I'm going off on a tangent, but that tangent is required anytime you start thinking about the lab tests associated with this activity. Let's go back and talk for a minute about, well, it costs too much. For many, it still is too much. That's, again, why I've got over 500 YouTube videos out there for free. That's really the public health way. Educate, 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 make stuff available to the population. But that's also set up on an assumption of you can't afford to test, so you have to guess. Am I insulin resistant? Well, I don't know. Do I have inflammation? Well, I don't know. Once you start getting into a different perspective, test, don't guess, the testing is effective. There's nothing like knowing that you're insulin resistant to help you start thinking about exercise, thinking about cutting your carbs, thinking about managing your diet better. But again, it's expensive. A couple of other points about it costs too much. I realize it costs too much, but start thinking about it. How much was your TV, your last vacation, your car, your boat, your cabin, your jet ski, dental work? As you know, at one point in time, over half of my patients were dentists, because they see this process with bleeding, bleeding and or inflamed gums. It was always kind of weird to me that they would discuss patients paying $5, $7, $15, and $64,000 for gum work, and then it's very important, and I have no doubt in most cases it's worth it. I've paid significant amounts of money for some of my own dental work. But how does that compare to cardiovascular inflammation? So what's the upside? Your health. Being healthy without disability and many years of your life. So I can't obviously tell you what the benefit and the cost is. I just wanted to make sure that we raised some questions so you thought about both sides of this issue. Will I continue to get better and get more resources out there, like, again, the free videos, the courses that are like $30 now? Yes, we're going to continue to make courses. We're going to continue to make more free videos. And again, so it just boils down to how much time do I have? How much does that extra time of waiting cost? How much money do I have access to? By the way, One of my patients, we have a video on him. His name is James West. James has got a significant experience in the finance industry. He and I have actually started talking about the potential for financing this work. We're not nearly ready for it, but hopefully over the next year or two we will be. We'll let you know as soon as we are. So again, thanks for your interest. Wanted to make you aware. Like I said, this appears to be a fairly popular option and event for people to get the entire exam, including extra hours focusing on this, and with a very deep 2-day boot camp, a one-on-one with me, a one-on-one with Janice, all the labs, and the CIMT. Thank you again for your interest.